Okay, so just to recap very briefly, we were speaking about, if you recall, just 3 levels of unity. There's unity with the material world, which is not true unity, because we still remain very much apart. There's unity with the intellectual concepts, that which we grasp with our mind. And then there's divine unity, which is really the unity that is achieved while studying Torah or even fulfilling mitzvot, where we become one with God, but one to the point that God is a part of us and we're a part of him. Those are the 3 levels of unity. Of course, this chapter so far, chapter 5 here in Tanya, has been speaking about the study of Torah, its benefits, its essential connection, that divine unity connection. And we'll continue here again at the bottom of page 148. Does anyone want to read? Does anyone want to read? Right here, 148. Anyone?
I can read if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Diana. Go for it.
Although this is true of every sphere of intellectual activity, the wonderful union, like which there is none other, contains a uniqueness that one achieves through the comprehension of Torah. Aside from the obvious difference in what the mind is uniting with, the divine wisdom as opposed to human understanding, the very nature of the union itself is more wonderful in Torah than in other disciplines. When a person understands some other subject, he unites with the idea of the subject, but not the subject itself. For instance, when he studies the motions of the stars, his mind unites with the concept of the moving stars, and not with the movement of the stars itself. Torah, however, is not merely the understanding of a certain reality, but the source of the realities it explains. In the words of our sages, God looked into the Torah and created the world. So when a mind unites with Torah, it is one not only with the understanding of something, but also with the thing itself, because Torah is the essence of the thing's very existence.
Right. So there's an additional layer here of understanding towards this divine unity that Rabbi Steinmetz is adding, and that is that we have to look at Torah as not just as God's divine wisdom, but also we have to look at Torah as the essential thing for everything. Mm-hmm. God created the world through Torah. The Torah is really the blueprint of the world and the blueprint of creation altogether. As the Zohar states, God looked into the Torah and created the world. So when we are studying Torah, we're not just studying one notion about a donkey or an ox, for example, about do not steal, do not commit adultery. What we're really studying is the foundation of many things in the world. Now, whether we see it or not is a different question, but that's what we're studying. And that level of unity can only be with God and with the Creator, and with the creations created by that Creator, can only be achieved through Torah, because Torah, again, as mentioned, is the blueprint of everything. So when we study Torah, we go really to the very essence of creation, and we're studying the Creator and his secret to creation. I would use a different, maybe more simplistic example, but they say that Coca-Cola has a secret formula that is only revealed to very few people. And by the way, one of these people is Rabbi Landa. I think that's his name, Rabbi Landa of Bnei Brak, because there's a big Coca-Cola factory in Bnei Brak, and he needs to be able to give the hechsher, the kosher certification. So he needs to know what the ingredients are. So he has a secret formula too. But I'm saying that when we study Torah, we are actually, God is inviting us to study his secret formula that creates this beautiful creation. Coca-Cola is not a beautiful creation in any sense of the word, but just to use that example. So again, he's allowing you into that safe, into that space where you are learning really the essence of everything. And By therefore studying Torah, you are uniting not just with the Creator, but with the secret of with His secrets, with the His secrets that enable the creation of the world. So that's a whole other level of unity. It's God inviting you to His intimate chambers and revealing all of His secrets. Yes, Rabbi Eisen, please.
So being a fan of Diet Coke, which means having a lesser understanding, how do you know if when you achieve this oneness, is there a euphoria, or is it hindsight? I mean, how do you know when if this is actually achieved or accomplished?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. It could be both. It could be hindsight. It could be the euphoria, what they call the aha moment. It could be that you're doing it, but you never know. Also,
I would add a question to Rabbi Eisen's question.
yeah.
Why is it important?
Why is it important to know whether you're achieving it or not? Maybe it is. Maybe
Because if it's important, I think if it's important to you, then you're not achieving it.
Oh,
And
right.
I think that if you believe it, you have achieved it.
Okay, fantastic. I like that. I like that.
I think the question changes as you travel along your path, and so you step up. It's a ascending spiral as a vision, but your questions change as you get closer, as you achieve certain levels. So that's how you know. It might be an aha moment. It might not be. It just might be an awareness that, oh, what about this? Sort of adding a question.
And perhaps it's when you stop asking questions and accept what's there.
Yes, but I think that it's important nonetheless to know what we are doing, that we are uniting with God, and we are uniting with His secrets, and we are uniting therefore with the creation altogether. And I think it's important to know, because it will give us not just a whole different approach to the study of Torah, but also a whole different desire to understand not that which we are reading, but also to understand God Himself, to deepen that connection. So I think it's still nonetheless very important to know what we are doing when we are connecting with God. And if we can feel that connection in which, God has allowed us right now into His intimate chambers, sharing His intimate secrets, then it will spark even a deeper connection. And that unity, I think, has an impact then on the rest of our lives. But whether we know it or not, we should still study Torah. And whether we feel it or not, we should still study Torah. It's reminiscent of what the Baal Shem Tov would, or the students of the Baal Shem Tov would say. Forget, and I'm sure many of you know this little parable, this little anecdote, but they say that the Baal Shem Tov would go to a certain spot in the forest, and he would sing a certain song, and that would, I don't know, what would that do? That would better society altogether. I don't really remember the parable. That's what he would say. Now, I'm sorry, change this around. Now his students came about. They knew the spot in the forest, but they forgot the prayer. So they would go to that same spot and they would say, look, this is what the Baal Shem Tov would do. We don't know the prayer anymore, but the least we can do is go to the same spot, right? You know the parable? The least we can do is go to the same spot and evoke the idea that the Baal Shem Tov would sing a song and better society. And then the students, the next generation came about, and they even forgot the spot. So they would stay where they were, and they would say, the least we can do is at least tell the story that the Baal Shem Tov would go to a spot in the forest and sing a certain song and enable that song to better society. And that's what they were left with. And I think that, in a way, to answer your question about Eisen, maybe previous generations knew exactly how and when that that connection occurred. We maybe are less fortunate, or at least I'm less fortunate. I don't know about you here, but at least we can learn about it like we're doing right now. And that in of itself will evoke this connection. Maybe. But
that's also the reason we read the Torah every year thoroughly, because it's connected. It can, you in the Torah, you learn something new every time. I'm sure you do.
Right.
Something pops out this year that didn't make itself, didn't catch your eye or your heart last year.
Right.
I mean, so
and that's the magic of Torah study. That's right, because it's God, because it's a divine. Every time there's an additional layer to it, to its infinity, like God Himself. Right.
Yeah.
And
it was even described as layers. You remember you went through 3 layers to get to the Torah study?
Yeah.
That's like going into the Holy of Holies. It's a tent, another tent, and then the final tent.
Right.
The paraket being sort of a sukkah within the sanctuary.
That's correct.
So,
yes.
right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You see that in prayer also. We spoke about prayer versus Torah study last week, but it's interesting to note. I mean, you remind me of a prayer that we say each and every day about the angels. We say that that there are 2 types of angels. There are angels that are called ofanim and holy chayot, holy animals. Chayot, yeah. That's one type of angels, and they shout when they pray. But the srafim, which is another type of angels, they say they pray very quietly. Now, the question is why? Why does one set of angels shout? And why does another set of angels? Why is another set of angels quiet when they pray? The srafim are very quiet. And the answer is very simple. The chayot and Ofanei Kodesh, those that shout, is because they're on a lower level. When you're lower level, you have to shout in order to find some connection, or to maybe think that you're getting some attention. When you're really united with God, you don't have to shout. It's like love. And the ultimate, when we were in the dating stage, then when we sit with our spouse on a bench in a park, and no conversation is happening, it feels awkward. We have to fill it up. Why do we have to fill it up? Because we know that we're not fully united yet, and therefore there needs to be a bridge between the two. That bridge is the noise, the conversation that we are creating. But if you are truly one with the person, you can sit on a bench in the park and be completely silent and not feel any awkwardness. The opposite, you feel united through silence. Why? Because you're one. There's no effort to be made to create that oneness. Same with these angels. The angels that are on a low level, they have to create a lot of noise because they're not one. The Srafim are one, more united with God. And because they're more united with God, they don't need to make so much noise. They're already. They say that about the Kotzker Rebbe. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but the Kotzker Rebbe was very, very fiery and would not hesitate to tell the truth, even if it was very blunt and could be very hurtful. But the Kotzker Rebbe would pray very different than other Hasidim. He would stand still and almost make no motion, no movement during prayer. Other Hasidim, his cousin, for example, would roll on the floor while praying. He would jump in such ecstasy that, his whole body would move. So they once came to the Kotzker Rebbe and they said, Rebbe, we don't understand. Look at your cousin. He seems to be praying much better than you are. He jumps around and so on. And the Kotzker Rebbe was very sharp, responded, what can I do? But lazy donkeys need to sweat more. So if you're a lazy donkey and work doesn't come naturally and you're not one with your purpose, then you're going to need to sweat more. You're going to need a rollover. I'm already connected, so I don't need to make all. I feel God even without all the effort. And in a way, I think that's what divine unity is. That sometimes we're so, certainly in previous generations, they were so one that it became, they may have felt it all the time. It was natural for them, that connection. We, on the other hand, sometimes have to go, from one exercise to the other, from one layer of the Torah to the other, and then somehow feel that connection at some point. But okay, that's that nuance in divine unity. Okay, let's continue. By the way, I think that artists and musicians can feel that, right? That I've mentioned this in the past, but I'll never forget. I once asked a world-renowned pianist, what is the moment in which she feels that she's reached a climax during a performance? And she told me it's when I'm not present. So I said to her, what do you mean? And she said, well, when you play the piano, you feel that there's a lot of you in the music. You're trying to figure it out. You're trying to connect to the composer, to the composition. There's a lot of you. But when that you is not present anymore and the music just flows through you, that's when you know that you've reached the climax. And in a way, I think that's the idea with divine unity, that we are so one that God flows through us. It's not about us anymore.
Right.
Okay.
May I ask a question with that comment that you just made?
Sure, please, Ronnie.
If it's not about us anymore, what is it about?
So that's a good question. It's about, I think, channeling God's words. So the Torah is so one with me that I become almost a channel of Torah in this world. It's not a question of, okay, now let me decide whether to share Torah. Now let me think about it. I see it with Rabbi Steinsaltz. Speaking of Rabbi Steinsaltz, I thought it was quite unbelievable in my eyes. Each time, I mean, no matter who he was speaking with, whether it was a small child or professors at Stanford University or wherever he was, every conversation turned to somehow, some way, it turned into a Torah lesson. And he didn't make any effort to think about, oh, now what can I say? It was just flowing through him. And William, you're saying you're not getting audio? I'm not sure why. Everyone else is getting audio, right? You hear me?
With a lot of feedback.
Yeah, there's this echo. I don't know where it's coming from. But it is what it is. Just respond to William. I think it's me. Sorry for the technical difficulties this morning. Okay, anyhow, so I think it's just you become such a channel that it flows through you, that you become a walking Torah in the world.
For the purpose of?
For the purpose of making God an actual presence in this world. Right.
It's our mission.
In a way, yeah. It's interesting. I would say this connects to another idea, completely different. Again, I don't know where this echo is coming from, but let it be. Speaking of noises to connect, so I guess these are the noises I have to connect with today. But out of all the utensils in the tabernacle, all utensils in the tabernacle, when they were built, had poles attached to them. That's because when the Jews traveled throughout the desert for 40 years, they had to carry the utensils, right? And they carried them with the poles attached to each and every utensil. Now, when they encamped, they would take the poles off the utensils and allow the utensils themselves also to encamp. But there was one utensil that where it says, very clearly in the Torah that the poles should not be removed from that specific utensil. Which one was it? The ark. The ark that has the tablets, the broken tablets that represented the Torah. The ark had to have its poles attached to it all the time, even when they were encamped. Now, why there's different ideas, but one main idea is because it comes to teach us what Torah is truly about. Torah doesn't belong in one place. It doesn't belong to Bnei Brak or to Borough Park, Brooklyn, New York. Torah has to belong even to Honolulu and even to Perth, Australia. It belongs everywhere. It's got to travel everywhere. And in a way, I think that's the idea of divine unity through Torah, that we are so united that we become walking Torahs wherever we are. We can be in Scottsdale, Arizona, and there's a walking Torah right here. It has to travel all the time. It can never be encamped in one place. No one can say, well, it only belongs to this geographical place. That's really the purpose, to answer your question, Ronnie. To enable Torah, that we become so one with the Torah, and that Torah now through us is really spread everywhere, even in the most banal conversations that we have with the cashier at a local supermarket. There's a great little Hasidic anecdote that was repeated by the Lubavitcher Rebbe quite often in his Hasidic talks about, I believe it was Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya, who once came to one of his Hasidim and he said to him, I'm very jealous of you, envious of you. The Chassid said, you, Rebbe, you're envious of me. He says, yes, you go to the marketplace to do business, and as you're selling and buying, you make, in every conversation that you have, you speak about God, and you ask people to do a mitzvah, and you share a Torah idea. It's something that I can't do, and I can't tell you how much nachas this is creating in the heavens. So I'm envious of you. Just being able to be that walking Torah in the marketplace where everyone's talking business, but yes, someone's infusing God. That in and of itself is just the most divine thing one can do. Yeah, it's being that constant messenger. Yes, Rabbi Eisen, please.
Kavod Harav, but I want to add one other little thing here about,
Please.
in response to Ronnie's question. And I like you're reminding us of the poles being attached, because it also reminds us it's always there waiting for us. In other words, if we need to pick it up, we can pick it up, and it's there waiting for us to pick it up. But the whole purpose, and it goes back to mission, and I would think that why is this so important? Because it leads to wholeness. And if you go back
that again, I'm sorry.
It can lead to wholeness.
Oh, it can lead to wholeness. Yeah.
If we're living in a world of shattered luchot, the first 10 commandments were broken, and shattered vessels, and our idea is to make them whole again. How do we make that tikkun? We have to start with ourselves. And I think that little tikkun, that fixing, is maybe what some of this is all about. And if we can start with ourselves, then maybe the world will follow.
Beautiful. Very, very good. Very good. I love that idea that in a way, by taking the ark everywhere that housed the broken tablets, we're repairing them, and we're repairing ourselves.
We're reminding ourselves,
like you said,
that along with the broken tablets were the whole tablets. They were both there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Luchot, v'shivrei luchot. Yeah. That's right. Very well said. Be the change that you want to see in the world, as they say. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. But how do we do that? By really making Torah part of us. And what Torah says really speaks to us. It's not two separate things. It's not a subject that you learn, it's not Jewish studies in some university. That you come, you learn, and then you're the same person. But Torah affects us so deeply that it changes us. And in a way, we change it too. We make it wholesome, like Rabbi Eisen was saying, yeah. I'm reminded of a different midrash, a very, very weird midrash about Ashmodai, who was the king of the demons in the times of King Solomon. And Ashmodai was able to create a man with 2 heads. I think there's a medical term for that. No? Is there? Jordan? Man with 2 heads or 2 heads? No? Whatever. Man with 2 heads.
A two-headed man, that's what they call
Two-headed
it.
man. Very
That's the term.
sophisticated. All right. So a 2-headed man. And this 2-headed man that Ashmodai, the king of demons, created, married. And they had children. Some children had 2 heads, some children had 1 head. Now, the children with 2 heads were once speaking about the inheritance they would receive from their father. But the children with 2 heads said, we should receive a double portion because we have 2 heads. So they didn't know what to do. And they went to King Solomon. King Solomon said, it's simple. The 2-headed children should have 1 head blindfolded. And the other head should have boiling water poured on it. If both heads shout in pain when boiling water is poured on just 1 head, that means they should only get 1 portion of the inheritance because they really won. If only 1 head shouts in pain, then fine, they can get a double portion. Now, that's the story. But I think it's a story about unity with our brothers and sisters in general, unity with Torah. If I'm united truly with something else, with Torah, then I feel its pain. I feel its teachings. Its teachings speak to me. Boiling water is poured on the Torah, or it's coming from the Torah. It affects my head too. That's really what unity is about. I can't study Torah and remain apathetic and indifferent after the study. It's got to stir something so deeply in me that it changes me, because that's what Torah unity is about. I think it's true with unity in general, again, with our brothers and sisters. I mean, we noticed this last week with the tragedy in Meron. It affected every Jew on the planet. Now, how could that be? After all, I mean, I'm not related to those 45 Jews or to anyone injured, but that's what Jewish unity is about. And I'm so one with them that boiling water is poured, it affects me. And that's the idea with Torah. That's the idea with God himself, that it really, 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 really affects me. You can't study Torah and remain the same person thereafter.
Shouldn't you also be related to nature in the same way? Not just humans, but nature itself.
Yes, but I would add in a different way. If nature, if you relate to the creator of nature, then yes.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, creator of nature is the same as the creator of the Torah, right? Anyhow. By the way, the King Solomon story is also the same as the, split the baby story. The mother feels the pain. And that's the idea. We got to feel the pain. Feel the joy too, and feel the words of the Torah. Yeah. That's why the Jerusalem Talmud, I think, very powerfully states that one should by all means study Torah, whether you feel it or not. Why? Because the light within it will spark your light. As it says. Yeah. Jordan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think they would get a double portion.
You think they would get a double portion?
Logically, yeah, because they're probably relating to conjoined twins. And I sent you this link, the famous Chang and Aang bunker, where Siamese or conjoined twins that went on to each father many children, had their own personalities, had their own thoughts and emotions. So I think they would get a double portion.
Oh, very good. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah.
How would they know which father was theirs?
Well, they weren't conjoined all the way down. They were conjoined at the chest and the abdomen. but not below.
No, I meant with the two-headed father. How would they know which father was theirs?
Well, there were two separate
No,
bodies.
I'm talking about the. I'm talking about the story Rabbi Alush.
Ashmodai. Good question. It's a midrash. I don't even know if the story is true.
It's another Bakor story, which just got us in trouble. So anyhow, yeah, Joseph had two coats. I mean, you know what the heck? He didn't have two heads. Anyway,
Right.
no. Okay, not that.
Anyhow, yeah. Anyway, so okay. All right, let's maybe one more line here at the top of page 149. The next line in the Tanya. Does anyone want to read? Hence the special superiority. Anyone? Please, Jordan, go for it.
Hence the special superiority, infinitely great and wonderful, that is in the mitzvah to know the Torah and comprehend it, over all the mitzvot involving action and even those relating to speech. Although with all mitzvot one establishes a connection with God, only the comprehension and knowledge of Torah achieves the wonderful union that occurs between the mind and the object of its contemplation.
Right. Yeah, because mitzvot is really an external act. In Torah, you have to absorb it in your mind. So the deeper connection is one with that occurs through the study of Torah. But again, that connection must also reflect that it indeed enter your depths. And how is it reflected? Again, by the change that they see in you. I think that if you study Torah as a robot, then you really haven't studied Torah. The study of the Torah is to change you completely. That's why I think the Baal Shem Tov would say that when one studies Torah, then he should pray that there's a blessing that one says before the study of the Torah, which is the same blessing of the Aliyah. We say it in the morning blessings every day, and he should pray that the same giver of the Torah should ensure that it comes out of the study of the Torah alive. The study of the Torah can be so deeply impactful that your soul will want to expire, because your soul will touch God's soul. So you should pray that you come out alive. Now, the Kotzker Rebbe, on the other hand, would say that it says that when the Jews received the Torah, and Vayaga'am Vayanu Vayandu Merachok, that the Jewish people saw God and the giving of the Torah, and they were moved, Vayanu, and they stood afar. And they were so moved that they were scared. So they went a few feet back. And the Kotzker Rebbe would say that's the tragedy, that some people study Torah, they are moved, Vayanu, but they still stand afar. The study of the Torah should move you so deeply that you want to come close, that you are coming close. And I think one of the ways to really measure that is whether something comes out of a study of Torah. Is there any tachlis, as they say in Hebrew? Have I changed something in my life, practically or maybe even just theologically? But has something changed? And if yes, then I've come close. Then really, that would mean that I really study Torah. If not, then maybe I didn't study Torah altogether. I was studying a text, but I certainly wasn't studying Torah itself. Because the study of the Torah, again, has to change us, has to truly move us. Now, does it happen all the time? I don't know, at least not to me. But the thought of approaching the study of the Torah in that sense should happen all the time. And hopefully the study itself can change us from time to time too.